Scott, how is the project coming along? Have the Climate Displacement Law Project guiding principles been drafted?
Well, we've been very busy drafting a series of principles on climate displacement, which we hope to have finished in the coming weeks, probably the middle of June or late June. And what we're going to do then, in a unique sort of way, is we're going to ask you, the world at large, to comment on these principles before they're finalized with a high-quality group of legal experts that will be convening in the middle of August in Australia. So they'll be online for about 2 months. Anyone who wishes to comment on the principles are more than welcome to do so. We'll give you an email address to send your comments to, and we hope very much that you provide whatever input you think is important to make these principles as usable and workable as they can possibly be in your country, and so that they can really benefit people who are displaced because of climate displacement. That's what they're about, after all.
Great, sounds awesome. So the Climate Displacement Law Project Principles Workshop that you spoke about, alluded to just then, the invitee list reads like a who's who of international research and policy creation. What does it mean to you in the project to have such input from people like Walter Kalin and from countries like New Zealand, Egypt, Bangladesh, the Netherlands, Papua New Guinea, Kiribati, India, and many others?
Well, we're very honored to be working with people of this caliber, and certainly we want to get the views from as many people in as many countries as possible to make sure that these principles and guidelines are as up-to-date, as workable, as practical as they can possibly be. So we're very, very happy to be working with all these people. And ultimately, it really shows that the problem of climate displacement is not isolated to one country or two countries. It's a truly global phenomenon. The numbers of people who are already being displaced because of climate displacement are already extremely high and growing. And we need principles like this to guide government practice and the practice of international organizations so that the huge gaps in law and policy and practice and funding can be filled in such a way that people can be treated as they should be treated, which is as holders of human rights.
Great. The Nansen initiative is gaining momentum with the Pacific Regional Consultation underway right now. Why do you value your participation in this project, and how will this and the Climate Displacement Law Project work synonymously to protect the human rights of displaced people?
Well, we're very glad to be a part of the Nansen initiative and a number of other initiatives as well around the world on the climate displacement question. The Nansen initiative in particular is vital because it's developing a protection agenda for the international community to address this major gap in international legal protection right now, which is the rights of those who need to flee their countries of origin because of natural disasters and climate change. We hope at the end of the Nansen process in 2015 that the documents that emerge will indicate that a much greater emphasis needs to be placed upon this question by not only those engaged in climate change every day, but by foreign ministries, by the United Nations, by bodies such as UNHCR and the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights, and ultimately national governments to put the laws and policies in place that lead to these people being able to know that they will not be left behind, that they will not fall between the cracks, that they will not be treated as people who are not worthy of human rights, but rather that they'll be treated as people who have dignity, who need some sort of head start in order to begin their lives anew, and who will be treated with respect and concern no matter where they happen to flee to.
Very important, definitely. And finally, this week, The Guardian broadcast some significant statistics regarding global displacement. The numbers from the International Displacement Monitoring Centre and Norwegian Refugee Council stated that 32 million people fled their homes last year due to disasters such as flood, storms and earthquake, and that 98% of the displacement was related to climate change. What's your reaction to these numbers and the massive implication of climate change in the phenomenon?
Well, we're very alarmed at these figures. I think these figures are actually probably conservative in nature, as they tend to be when you're being extremely careful in terms of determining who has actually been displaced because of disaster and climate change. So we can presume rather safely that the numbers are in fact actually higher, and we can with certainty say that these numbers will continue to grow. Other scientific data that came out over the last few weeks indicates that with almost complete certainty, global sea level rises will reach at least 70 centimeters higher than they are now by the end of this century, which of course will mean the mass displacement of tens, if not hundreds of millions of coastal dwellers throughout the world between now and then. And the world the world we live in is such that we need to ask ourselves this one question: what is going to happen to those people? Where will they go? How will they be treated? Are they treated simply as hapless victims of circumstances beyond their control, who are expected to find their own way without any assistance by international organizations or governments? Or are they actually holders of human rights? Are they citizens? Are they people who should benefit from the protection that's meant to be given to them by this whole body of human rights law that we've created over the past 60 years? And we, of course, would side with that position, that these are rights holders. These are people who are losing essentially everything they have, all of their assets, their homes, their lands, their farm animals in some instances, their tools, everything that they have that allows them to be able to live a full and dignified life is essentially gone. Insurance companies are not going to pay for these losses for everyone who's affected. And we stand to look forward, unfortunately, to a situation whereby many, many millions of people end up destitute. The mechanisms need to be put in place today. The laws that are needed need to be put in place today. And the policies need to be put in place today to deal with this pending crisis. We know more or less how large it's going to be. We know the areas that are going to be affected. It's now incumbent on governments and the international community to realize the scale of this problem and to begin to undertake the measures needed to minimize the hardships that these millions of people will face. And that's where we are at now as a world. We need to think ahead. We need to plan accordingly. And we need to put the money where it needs to go, which is towards the purchase of land, recreating livelihood options, recreating even entire cities in some instances, so that these people have somewhere to go and so that they can rejoin the workforce and become functional members of society once again.